Good afternoon. This is BJ O'Reilly, and I'll be taking you through the demystifying world of IT. So, the bigger part of this is always that world of IT standing for information technology. So, I definitely want to explain how the mysteries of it are really not as mysterious as you would think they are. So, the nice part about this as we go through, will definitely empower you with information and some particulars that you need to understand this world of information technology. Welcome to SWK's Empower 2021. I want to personally thank you for attending and make sure that you look for notes at the end of this session. We'll also be available for questions and answers. So I look forward to taking you through this, and let's get started. So one of the key takeaways that I really want to talk about is this idea of hybrid cloud. So you see IBM all the time, they're advertising, everybody's talking about hybrid cloud. What is it for me? How can I have it? The other part of this is talking about on-premise knowledge. So, you have your information technology, it's currently on site at your location. How does that on-premise technology work for you? How can it work better for you? How can you make sure that you understand what you have, what you own, and what it's doing for you? Then we're going to talk about the business challenges for cloud hybrid and information technology. So part of this is in this world of demystifying it and at least giving you the information you need is what business challenges does it pose for me and where does it take me? The other thing is IT issues with hybrid information technology. We'll talk a little bit about that. So, always say you can't get the good without the ugly. You can't get the bad without the ugly. So it goes good, bad, and ugly. For sure, definitely giving you some of that information is going to be important. Then we're going to talk about this concept of VCIO. Stands for Virtual Chief Information Officer. How can I have access to one, and how is it that you yourself can take advantage of that? And that role of that BCIO really is about demystifying what you have and what you need. Then we're talking about a customer case. So what is hybrid cloud? What does that really mean to me? I hear private cloud, public cloud, hybrid cloud, like I said, most of you see these commercials for IBM, you understand that there is technology out there. What does that mean for me? Then you hear this thing, single tenant, multi-tenant, so in the world of SWK technologies, we live in an everyday ERP world. So that stands for enterprise resource planning, or it's just a fancy name for accounting. And in accounting software, where does that live for me and how does that affect me? I think it's always about how that relationship can be maintained with what I'm doing and how I'm doing it. And for sure, in our world of accounting software, while we don't think it's complicated, it is a complete business driver. So, private cloud. What is private cloud? Private cloud is something that is what you currently have from an on-premise situation going up into, let's say, co-location. So you're in a data center somewhere, you have your own equipment. That could be considered a private cloud. Then you have this concept of public cloud. So what's public cloud? So public cloud are things like Amazon. Very much we use it every day. So we have Amazon technology, Amazon.com, that's part of the public cloud. Or you have products like NetSuite that are part of the public cloud, or you have products like Sage Intacct that are part of the public cloud. Then you have this concept of hybrid cloud. So hybrid cloud takes the best of using some on-site technology or on-premise technology. We are able to merge that together to give you an information technology that is within itself partly on-site, partly on-premise, some mobile. It could be all of those things. So these are part of what this hybrid cloud is it's a mix and mashup of what we're doing on-premise to what we're doing in the cloud. And it can be a mix of technologies. So here's a very good example for you from a hybrid standpoint. If I was to ask you right now, if I could see everyone, I'd ask how many have Office 365? And I would be surprised not to see at least half or more in the room raise their hand. Well, Office 365 is really part of the hybrid cloud. I'm using some of that right now, and even presenting to using Microsoft Teams, I'm able to give you this hybrid cloud technology. So Office 365 is a good example of what I would consider the hybrid cloud. So you're probably using Microsoft Office on your laptop, or you're using Microsoft Office in the cloud. It's a hybrid. It's part or both. So what are some of the benefits of hybrid cloud? I hear this all the time. It's like, why would I do this? Why would I bring that? And I think, excuse me, part of this demystifying piece of this is this idea of, instant scalability. And what does that mean? So, you're leveraging technology. So in the world of Office 365, another good example is, I can add users to my Exchange server without worrying about how much power I need to have on my Exchange server. Or the bigger one that I hear all the time is I don't have enough storage space. So you have that instant scalability to grow as your company grows and be able to consume more, or the part of the instant scalability is consume less. So you can remove users, you can scale down, or you can scale up. It's both directions. Then the next part of that is this idea of instant flexibility to meet your business needs, right? So you're wanting to meet those business needs. You're wanting to understand what those specific needs are. And so a lot of this in this world of hybrid cloud is, meeting the need of how your business operates. So a manufacturer operates differently than a distributor. A distributor operates differently than a service provider. All of these pieces are part of that flexibility. The other thing is opportunities to lower costs. So if you can't lower costs, then why would I do hybrid cloud if it costs me more? I hear this all the time because we'll give a proposal, they'll get an on-site proposal. My server costs $7,000, but my hybrid cloud costs $9,000. You have to make sure you account for the overall usage and what that business expense will look like over a 3 to 5 year period. So in all fairness, you can't say we're lowering opportunity costs when that opportunity doesn't take into account all of the things around it. The world of hybrid cloud, your internet, your flexibility of bandwidth, the storage needs you might have, all of that is part of that opportunity cost. The other thing is you can phase in adoption, and I think this is one of my favorite in talking about this demystification is you don't have to do it all at once. So you can go in, you can start out and do a little at a time. Again, if I ask the room how many have Office 365, a large percentage of the room probably would raise their hand. That is part of a phased adoption. Being able to leverage those different technologies in small pieces, or as I like to call them, digestible pieces, because the expense is something we're always looking at. The other thing is there's not a need to spend the money today for the needs of tomorrow. So a lot of times we're having to think out and ask a customer and say, where do you think you'll be 3 years from now? Because if I match a server to your current need, it very well may change, and that's going to be definitely a cost change. So think about today, think about tomorrow, think about that scalability, think about that opportunity. So let's talk about hybrid cloud adoption. So it's gone up dramatically. We see it at SWK Technologies. We see it within MCS, Managed Cloud Services. We see this enterprise cloud strategy. And so people say, well, the hybrid cloud's not for me. I'm too small. I'm a 5 or 10 or 15 person organization. And again, we talked about previously, adopting small digestible chunks of this world of hybrid cloud. And enterprises have definitely gone there. We've seen that in the enterprise world adoption at a much higher rate. So the use of data centers, the use of that technology allows them to scale as they need it, or in the advent of COVID, you saw a lot of people scale down. They didn't need to consume as much, so they were paying for less. So during that time, that's the benefit of that hybrid cloud is you're paying for whatever consumption you need, not what you don't need. So that's important. So you got public, private, but boy, hybrid is up there. And so it allows the mix of that on-premise technology with the ability to have the world of cloud. So private, public, hybrid. So one of the things that SWK did when they went out and they started secure cloud services was this concept of having the ability to do a hybrid cloud, but do it at a different level to be able to look at that expense. And so when that service provider, SES is that service provider, is Secure Cloud Services went out and looked at the data center. We looked at data platform, virtualization, all of those things, but we engineered that commodity to really work within the world of our customers' accounting software or ERP software. It's more specifically Sage 100. So for those of you out there owning Sage 100, the design was really built around the needs of Sage 100. And that's what you'll see in a lot of this private, public, and hybrid cloud is this ability to engineer to a lot of commonality. So the ability to use some of these unified pieces and have that ability to present that to the customer in a hybrid way. So that's all part of this whole strategy of working within that virtualization strategy. So we did things like single sign-on, development of VMwares anywhere. We looked at technologies and how we could bring that down to on-premise. So things like barcode printers and other technologies. We had to take all of that into account to create a very hybrid situation because you're partly on-premise and you're partly in the cloud. Getting the benefits of both data backup, storage arrays, the ability to gear up when your business goes much stronger, maybe during a seasonal change. All of those became part of that hybrid strategy. So what are some of the business management challenges of IT and hybrid cloud? So I talked about the good. Now we'll talk a little bit about, I wouldn't call it the ugly, but it gets into the point of, what are those strategies? So a lot of times there's lack of visibility across IT environments. So you may have 4 or 5 different locations. You've got different technologies in those locations in some case. So a lot of this really stems from this visibility across these environments. The other thing is about IT spend accountability. So we like to try. Let's try this. And we spend money on it and it dismally fails. And in this case, that spend accountability is lacking because, we need IT. We've got to have it. We've got to be able to run our business. So we lack in that spend accountability. That is probably one of the #1 challenges for most companies is this idea of spend accountability. So, and then we have IT waste. Oh my gosh, we buy it, we didn't use it, we threw it away. We bought a server, found out that our business is going to grow by 90%, and now we got to take that server, throw it away. So a lot of these challenges exist for the world of IT, and waste is one of them. And then the other thing is supply and demand. It's best guess when you're deploying it. So it's like, is this the right time? Should I do it? Should I not do it? And that's where a lot of this can really play into having a good technology partner to help you with your technology stack, is this idea of when the timing is right. And then the economics of cloud are marginally realized. So a lot of people don't really understand what the economics are. So we want to take you through that. And while in my limited 25 minutes that I have to present to you, you guys can ask me these questions after this session. What are the economics of it? What does that look like? How does that play into my overall strategy and where I'm going to go budgetarily? Is how is this economic strategy realized for me as a customer? So we talk about SWK and Microsoft Cloud adoption. So you'll hear things like Microsoft Azure. So a lot of what we're doing in the hybrid cloud is to leverage the Microsoft stack, not just Office 365. There's also other pieces. And if you've gone to some of the other sessions about Office 365 or Microsoft 365, you'll hear a lot of talk across that cloud strategy. And again, hybrid cloud is not just running my servers in the cloud. A lot of it will be running Microsoft Power Apps or Power BI or some of this other technology. We really want to adopt that Microsoft Cloud strategy. And while we maintain our own data centers through Secure Cloud Services, you'll have other needs in that hybrid strategy. So you could be using partly Secure Cloud Services. You could be working directly with Microsoft or have a Microsoft relationship. You might have another relationship in that world that all plays into this hybrid technology. So thinking across multiple technologies is not uncommon. So definitely SWK, we're poised with that. We're really working towards that. That is definitely one of the strategies, both at an executive level and at a management level. So customer questions, these are some of the most common that I see all the time, is how do I manage my IT in hybrid cloud? Great question. A lot of times that's asked of us. So, different technologies, obviously managed cloud services, we have managed provider services, they call them MSP services. We can help you with managing your IT infrastructure. We're definitely there to do that. There's also a lot of good software strategies in the hybrid cloud that allow you to manage some of the things that you want to do. And we're definitely there to help give you a direction and point you in the right way. And you'll see at the end of my presentation or at the end of this, when you ask questions, we can talk about what some of those management and hybrid cloud strategies are. And then the other one I get asked quite often, we deal with controllers in the world of accounting software. So how do I justify the cost for our IT and hybrid cloud? And that is probably the biggest one. When I talked about earlier, wasted IT spend or no spend accountability, budgeting and making sure you understand what that IT spend is important. One of the most common things I see with customers is the ability to put something on their credit card and they don't manage it. And they find out 6 months later, well, I haven't been using that, but you've been paying for it. And so that's part of that spend accountability, and definitely helping you with that is part of the practice of understanding that IT spend. Then you have this concept of IT governance and controls for consumption and spend. So, having a governance team, technology teams are definitely a plus in organizations that will give the time for it. And when I talk about that, it is this idea of having people who are technology proficient be part of a group versus it just being your director of IT or your IT person or your controller. You'll have one or two, maybe three people, depending on the size of your organization. If it's extremely large, you may have up to 5 that are part of your IT strategy. And they can help provide governance and controls for that consumption and spend. So they're the guys you go to as the CEO to say, why should we spend? So at SWK, before I decide I want to spend $75,000, we go through an executive review. And we work through that and understanding what is it we need, how will we be consumed, and what will the spend be. I think that's a really good way to have this idea of governance in your world. So in the mysteries of IT, is not asking the question, just assuming that your IT director or your vice president of IT or whatever his title might be is going to be all knowledge. It's going out and looking at outside organizations and getting some understanding. And I always tell our customers, talk to 2 or 3 of our customers at SWK. Find out what's working and not working for them. I want it both ways. And now we're moving from this world in hybrid cloud, especially in the world of CapEx to OpEx, right? So capital expenditures to operating expenditures. And, a lot of people think, okay, well, how do I prevent runaway costs? If I go out and buy equipment and I finance it, I have a fixed cost. That cost is there. And my question is, do you really have a fixed cost? Because my response to you would be, I don't think you really have a fixed cost. Because there's things that crop up. There's the server did this, it got ransomware, and I'm not going to go into that. That's a whole different description. But how can I prevent that runaway cost? I think the bigger part of that is having a good strategy for governance and control will make all the difference in the world. So let's talk about a customer case study. I think it's always important to interrelate this to somebody who's experienced the world of hybrid cloud and IT. So enterprise implementation of central IT service delivery, they wanted a single service provisioning system. And when I say that, they wanted to be able to have the users be able to reset their passwords, to request things. They wanted a good way to track consumption and cost against programs in progress. And they wanted to understand what the requirements are separate from infrastructure as a service, which is part of hybrid cloud, and this idea of on-premise tracking. And so what we did with the customer is created a self-service provisioning. So using different technologies, they had some Cisco, they had VMware, they had Microsoft Office 365, they had a help desk, they had all of these technologies, and we put this together into what we call this service catalog. So this customer was able to then see all of the different components and how they comprised, both from an expense standpoint and from an ability to provision very quickly and from an IT technology governance side. So I think that makes it very important from a technology standpoint that we as an organization understand what that was. Now, when I talk about this enterprise level, this customer had a huge network. They had 7 locations, they had about 100 employees. And, so we took all of that and we combined that into an instance that allowed them to have their ERP in one location. We had all of these things that we put together. So definitely from that perspective, they said, well, we needed to be very self-service oriented because of where we're located across the country. So the IT guy didn't come in until 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock Pacific. That suddenly caused the East Coast people to have issues. So the benefits of that was the SWK MCS solution. We did a complete stack solution and managing that, including their IT. We were able to show them where there's chargebacks and billings across their hybrid cloud. We allowed them to see all of the life cycles, including their Microsoft 365. And we had the ability to very quickly maximize the use of valuable assets across the cloud. So not only did we use part of their on-premise strategy, but they had some value in the cloud already. We were able to maximize some of that value by leveraging a lot of the Microsoft Office 365 stack. And then we allowed it to work across any environment. So it didn't matter if you were running on Comcast or another provider. The on-premise stuff worked at the home. It worked in the environment in their distribution centers. It worked all over. So definitely makes a big difference from that perspective. Is it allowing it to work across those seamless solutions? And overall, this customer saw the strategy. To give you an example, their IT spend decreased by 26% annually by moving to this hybrid solution. But their overall governance increased by 170% because they were able to look at that solution as a whole and manage it as an organization. So that made a big difference. So this last concept I want to talk to is, I talked about this idea of a virtual CIO. So a virtual CIO is a contractor or a company, but they operate as your chief information officer. They collaborate, they advise you, they work with IT departments, they work with controllers, VPs of finance, CEOs, but they're, basically your chief information officer. They're there to provide that strategy, to be able to understand that strategy in itself is where you need to go. And that virtual CIO is there to look at the organization, look at its 1, 2, 3, 5-year plan, and be able to determine some of the technology that you're going to require going forward. So SWK Managed Cloud Services, we do vCIO services for you. We can provide those. We have people who have owned their own business, have been able to provide overall strategy, including myself as the CTO of SWK Technologies. I work in that vCIO role as well, helping advise our customers on what some of their best strategies are. Some of them economical, some of them business related. There's a varying degree in what that vCIO can supply. So finally, I just want to thank you for coming to Empower 2021. I know we've all had a strained 2020 with COVID-19. I personally want to thank you, our customer, for all you do for us at SWK Technologies, and want to be there for you. So give us a call to schedule a VCIO brief introductory call. You can reach us at sales@swk.com or on our website, or you can talk to any one of your CAMs, TAMs, or any of the people in our organization. They'll point you in the right direction to myself and my team. I want to thank you again and have a great Empower 2021. Thank you.